Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this sunny Friday morning. I'm out at Ewan's place on the edge of Mount Buninyong. It's absolutely beautiful. And on this Friday morning before a long weekend, I hope you've all got something fun planned, maybe getting out and about to enjoy Victoria again now that we're allowed. So thanks for joining us. This is the third and final webinar in our series, our Recovery Bootcamp series. So far, we've given you some tools and advice to work through survive, then pivot or adapt stages of crisis management. And now finally, I want to take you through the all-important stage and element of this business recovery journey, which is about thrive. So today's webinar is, sorry, I'm just gonna touch it. There we go. So today's webinar, as I said, we've been through the survive and adapt stages and now moving into thrive. So today I'm going to talk to you about getting back to strategy, about leading and what you can do as leaders to bring your team through this stage, and about what's next. What are you going to do after today? So getting back to strategy, what do I mean by that? So you'll recall this slide from one of the earlier webinars, and this was really about talking to you about when you're in the midst of the crisis. We really wanted you to focus the bulk of your time on the how, on the implementation. Things are moving so rapidly and you just had to get down and do things within your business to keep things moving forward. We wanted you to touch on the now and assess what the reality of your now is. And then, of course, touch on where you want to go and where you want to be in the short-term future and really understand that gap. But as I said, spend the bulk of your time in the how, in the implementation, in the doing. However, now a little bit of time has passed, restrictions are beginning to lift, and hopefully the pace of change is slowing, and hopefully the worst of it is now behind us. So it's now time to get back to strategy. So we really want you now and recommend you now to take the time to come back to your now. Where is your business at? Now that you've got a little bit of clarity around the situation, you've gained some insights over the past few months. If you're anything like me, you've read way too many research reports and watched too many news reports and opinion pieces and all the rest, and taken on a lot of information, watched how your business has reacted to this unfolding crisis, and no doubt, hopefully, have a little bit more clarity around the reality of your now and how your business is sitting. So it's now time for you to take that clarity and really regain your focus and think about where you want to be in the future and what's the intent of your business. And then it's thinking about the roadmap and the how. How are you going to empower and enable and manage change? How do we get there? And what is the new path to our summit? So as I said, time to get back to strategy and refocus on what is the reality of your now and where you're going. So one of the Mindshop tools we've shown you before is this now, where and how tool. So the now, again, reassessing where your business is at now with a bit more clarity. And then as leaders with your leadership team, you need to refocus and think about the where are you headed and where do you want to be in the future? And of course, developing those strategies and plans, that's your how in terms of how you're going to get there. However, one critical step that I don't want you to miss, I don't want you to spend all your time in the where and looking at that long-term thing. It's a problem that we see many clients face, in that they tend to skim over some of those underlying issues, some of those key issues that are facing the business that just can't be missed. So I think COVID has brought about undoubtedly a whole lot of key issues for many businesses. And a lot of businesses are hurting as a result of it. However, it's really important to note that, yes, during this tumultuous time, COVID has caused a lot of issues, but it would be a mistake to blame all issues within your business on COVID and to skim over them. So, I think if we look at a couple of big examples of companies that have gone down during this crisis, if we look at Hertz, over 100 years in business, Virgin Airlines, closer to home, two large companies that have gone under. It would be easy to blame their failure on COVID. However, I think, it couldn't be, undoubtedly those businesses had some seriously core underlying key issues that were not COVID related. So COVID tipped them over the edge, but there were underlying issues. So in a nutshell, this Mindshop process is really a balance between the short term and the long term. plans and ensuring that all issues are addressed and strategies and implementation plans are developed to address both the short-term and the long-term issues within your business. So now delving into the strategy process a little bit more deeply, and this is an example of how we implement strategy and the steps to strategy success. So the first thing you'll notice here is that strategy is not a one-off event. This is an ongoing process. And we really see that as an ongoing and continual process within your business. It's not an isolated thing. So with strategy development, it begins with engagement, getting your stakeholders on board and really agreeing as to the scope of where you're headed and making sure that you're all in agreement on that. Then it's about developing the strategies and the plans in order to get you there. And that's about building the strategies and then setting them in place. You'll notice there the word percolate. Great word that makes us all think of coffee. But what we mean by that is to give yourselves time to allow those strategies to really percolate. So what I know you and Mike and I all do with our clients is we tend to run strategy sessions over a number of sessions rather than all get together, set the strategies, high five, walk away and get on with it. What we find works really well is to run a strategy session, build some of those strategies, then all walk away, get back to our day jobs and really allow those strategies to percolate, mull them over, give yourself some clear headspace to really think about them whilst you're doing your jobs, potentially talk to your teams about them, and then we reconvene as a group. And we find that that really brings about a richness and depth of thinking. And sometimes, often, some of the best thinking comes about in those subsequent sessions. So allow the strategies to percolate before you set them in place. Then alignment, so important, what we figuratively speaking refer to as base camp. It's about gathering your people at base camp, all gaining that line of sight to the summit and making sure that you're all have the same path to that summit, you're all in alignment and then getting on and heading that way. And then of course the implementation, the doing, so important. And you may look towards some coaching here to help you through. And then as we said, this is an ongoing process strategy. So it's about that continual reset and refine of your strategies. And look, during a crisis and situation like this, which is changing so quickly, that is even more important than ever. You going to have to keep coming back to those strategies and making sure that they're still relevant. So there's a nice tight strategy process for you to follow, and the three of us are here to help you should you need it, so please reach out. Now this next slide is a tool that I wanted to put in here because it's a fantastic tool in this current situation as we're coming out of hopefully the worst of this COVID crisis. It's about asking yourselves some really pertinent questions with your teams as to help you gain some clarity and refine your business for the path forward. So any business can do this, and I really urge you'll get this in your pack afterwards, I really urge you to complete this later, perhaps with your leadership team or key stakeholders. And then out of this, you can take some key points that you can then address when developing your strategies. So, ask yourself questions. What are our growth targets? Do we consolidate? Where will the growth come from? What level of profitability will we target? And what KPIs will drive us? Funding, how will we fund growth and innovation? And how will we ensure we have a strong balance sheet? In the industries, what market are you in? What industries are we in? And what emerging trends are there? And that's a really important point. I know in the past, out of a crises tend to breed huge amounts of innovation. The last big upheaval we had, the global financial crisis, there was an incredible innovation that came out of that. Businesses, Airbnb, Uber, what else? Airbnb, Uber, WhatsApp, Dropbox, just some of the huge businesses that all came out of a crisis. So I feel very confident in that we'll see a huge new wave of innovation come out of this crisis as well. Customers, who is our ideal customer? Maybe different to who it was 4 months ago. How will we win new business? The competitors, what are the gaps in the market and what innovations do we need to embrace? Products and services, again, there might be opportunities here. What products and services will we offer? Do we need an online strategy now? How do they satisfy a future need in our target market? Again, there'll be future needs that are unfolding now that we hadn't seen before. Stop doing, this is a really interesting one. What will we not be doing by way of products and services going forward? There are a lot of businesses out there who were forced to stop doing certain things. So, you know, they may choose not to go back to those. And importantly, what's our sustainable competitive advantage moving forward? Your people, it's a great time to relook at your people. Who's leading the business and who are the key people and who are our trusted source sounding boards? So not just within your business, but with your sounding boards externally. The capabilities, what new capabilities in the team will we require to be successful? And do we have enough resilience to change? The team, this is again a pertinent one coming out of this. Where are our team based and what's our structure? I know there's certainly a lot of businesses in downtown Collins Street that are asking themselves this: do we need this huge office now that working from home has been so successful in many instances? And the passion, so important. What will our purpose, our why be? And are our values clear and articulated in a practical way? And does this vision excite us? And if so, why? And if not, let's change. And giving back, what will our community contribution be? So a great slide and great timing to really revisit this in this post-COVID period. So you can take some of those learnings from that previous slide and then you put them into a strategic SWOT, which I'm sure many of you have used before. And that's really about identifying your core strengths and weaknesses and your opportunities and threats. So ask yourself, how can I use these strengths to commercialise these opportunities? What do I need to do to make sure these weaknesses don't spoil these opportunities? And how do I use these strengths to overcome the threats? And what if these weaknesses and threats combine? What corrective action will I need to take? So really, a SWOT is been around forever, but still just such a powerful tool to really uncover some of those key issues and opportunities. So to summarise, how do we take our strengths and commercialise them into opportunities? How do we overcome the threats and take advantage of our strengths? How do we realise the opportunities and make sure they're not overcome by weaknesses? And what corrective action do we need to take? So then to the final step in the sequence, which I touched on before, which is that alignment of the team. If you don't, you can have the best vision and strategies, but without your team behind you, it's impossible to succeed. And if you look at this, you know, really powerful image and imagine what's happening here, there's a whole group of people at the base of the highest summit in the world. They've all got a clear line of sight to that summit, but unless that leader brings those people together, and there's so many options in front of them, and unless that leader brings these people together and agrees on the best path to that summit, then they're not going to succeed. They're all going to need to work together. If any of them go off in a different direction, then tragedy may unfold. So that leader really needs to make sure everyone is in alignment. They know where they're headed, and now it's a matter of getting on and doing it. And importantly, once they've seen the summit, chosen the path there, just get on with it and do it and don't hesitate. Which leads me into change and your role as leaders in leading change, especially through this difficult period. A funny cartoon here, which depicts a typical reaction to change. Ask a group of people who wants to change, a lot of hands go up. However, you ask people who wants to change, and you tend to get a bit of a different reaction. So this is, again, going to be really important in the 12 months or the time ahead. We've all been forced to accept huge change in these past few months, haven't we? You know, and I think how easily your people will adapt to more changes ahead will be really telling. So research tells us that it takes approximately 21 days to form a new habit. So whilst there's no doubt been resistance to change at the beginning of the pandemic, there's no doubt now that new habits have been formed. some good, potentially some not so good. But new habits have definitely been formed. So in some instances, people will now be asked to undo those new habits and change these habits again. And, you know, working from home, or in the case of my children, schooling from home, they struggled at first. Now they're really in a new habit, and I think they might struggle returning next week. So as I said, we've all been forced into change in the past few months, and that's not going to disappear anytime soon. So as a leader, what can you do to lead people through change and through a crisis? A lot of studies have been done about looking at what the key attributes of leadership, of what that leaders need to lead teams through a crisis. And those attributes really are adaptability, agility, resilience, and scenario planning. And, you know, if you think about adaptability, we've all seen so many fabulous examples of businesses adapting and individuals adapting through this time. Ewan talked on Monday about all those restaurants and cafes that have quickly pivoted to a takeaway model. You know, we've seen hotels that were all of a sudden not filled with visitors or tourists, but some of them pivoted quickly and offered themselves as quarantine hotels. We've seen gin distilleries that all of a sudden pivot, saw the opportunity in the market and pivot towards making hand sanitizer. So some great examples of adaptability out there. Agility too, I think this crisis came on so quickly and again showed us some fantastic examples of agility. And, you know, I think one of the most evident to me has been the government, you know, generally incredibly unagile, was forced through a crisis to be agile. Things that would normally take months, if not years, to get through Parliament were moved through so quickly because they were forced to be agile in the face of a crisis. Resilience, definitely a key attribute as well. And again, we probably can all think of examples where certain businesses have shown resilience and others just haven't had that in place. And then scenario planning, again, so important through a crisis. No one knows what's ahead when you're in the midst of a crisis, so important to continually look at different options and ensure that you're scenario planning. So I'm just going to hone in a little bit more on adaptability, and a great quote here from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. And given what 2020 has thrown at us so far, it is undoubtedly one of the most important attributes for success. We're living in a world where the pace of change is faster than it's ever been before. Be it technological change, automation, globalisation, and now a global pandemic. Change is certain, it's absolutely guaranteed, so it's how we adapt to change that really is the key to success. There's a fantastic TED talk that we've put in here by Natalie Fratto, which I urge you to watch. It's so fascinating. So Natalie is someone that assesses and then invests in startup companies. And she assesses the founders and listens to their pitch. And she takes a really different approach from the traditional, you know, some may assess them based on their IQ or even their EQ. But Natalie in this talks about what she refers to as the AQ, their Adaptability Quotient. So I urge you to watch this clip and then ask yourself some of these questions out of it. Some what if questions. What used to be a fanciful question, but what if you were faced with a global pandemic and what would you do as a leader? Now we're really in the middle of a real life test, and how have you adapted to the crisis? What should you now unlearn during the crisis, and how open are you to doing that? Really important, you know, they're old habits, old ways of doing things that you've now realised are not part of your path forward, and what do you need to unlearn? And looking at innovation and opportunities that come out of this, will you infuse exploration of new innovations and opportunities into your life and business through this crisis, and how? So watch the clip and then come back and ask yourself some of those questions, which are a great way to measure your adaptability. Now, statistically, there has not been historically, there's been no statistically proven change success model until now, until about 10 years ago, where Dr. Chris Mason, who's the founder of Mindshop, And he developed a model and in fact was awarded his doctorate for it. So over about 10 years of research, Dr. Chris Mason developed a hypothesis and then proved what he calls the change success models. He proved that when there is high belief, high readiness, and high capability across an organisation, then the attempted change is generally successful. So he looked at the readiness, how ready the organisation and the people within it are to implement change. He looked at the capability, the skills, people, training, and resources required to implement change. And then the beliefs, the overall attitude of the organisation in relation to change. And what he did, he ranked all these different elements from leadership support. Do you have it? Is there a need for change? The what's in it for me? Can the people within the business see what's in it for them on a personal level? How good is the change process? Is there confidence in it? Looking at the capability, both on a personal and an organisational level. Looking at the significant others within the business and what their belief is, the attitude, and then the perceived difficulty to change. And he got organisations to rank themselves on that. And what he found that when things are below 70%, things are going to be problematic. However, when the scores were above 80%, the chance of success grew exponentially. So this was a global study that was ratified by an American university and a couple of English universities. Again, a really interesting thing to do within your business. I know Mike said he uses it really regularly with clients before he tries to implement a change program, just to have a look at where they're at and what the chances of success are. And again, you know, through this, it's been interesting to see how some businesses have been able to change and adapt and others just haven't. And a funny thing I was thinking about this morning on the way out here was that a couple of traditional businesses, being Myer and David Jones, traditional department store retailers, and how they just have not successfully changed over the years, and this online, and haven't been able to move to an online model, for example, and they're really struggling as a result of it. And COVID has brought about, really highlighted that fact, I think. So then, this is not down right. There we go. Sorry.
That's it.
Yep. So this really wraps up, I guess, that change success formula, and shows that it really is, we believe, the combination of that proven change model and looking at the readiness, capability and beliefs within the organisation, and adding that with the excellent implementation and all that that involves. And that really seems to depict the change success within an organisation. So again, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones that are most responsive to change. So what's next? Well, so far this morning, I've taken you through a few tools to help you on your journey to thrive. We've looked at the where process and visioning to begin the thrive stage. I've taken you through the strategy process and used a couple of tools to really hone in on the key areas to address. And then we've gone through leading change and what attributes leaders need to successfully bring their team and their businesses through this difficult time. So one last thing I want to talk to you about this morning is mindset. Dr. Carol Dweck proved in her research that if you have a fixed mindset, then you're likely to avoid changes, avoid challenges, and generally speaking, stick with the status quo. However, if you have a growth mindset, you embrace challenges, which leads to a desire to learn and continue to learn and try new things. You don't walk away from challenges, you walk towards them. A lot of Dr. Dweck's research focused on students in schools, and what she found was that students with a fixed mindset were generally less successful in their academic results than those with a growth mindset. Now, it doesn't mean those people with a fixed mindset are dumb or unintelligent or anything like that. In fact, they're actually those that are born intelligent, and actually things have come fairly easily to them. So they don't have to put in too much effort. Whereas those with a growth mindset tend to be those that know they have to put in a little bit more hard work. They know they have to fight harder to get the results they want. They're not put off by a challenge or something difficult. So I'm sure we can all think of examples of people in our lives that fit into these two categories. So I guess in terms of what's next, it's time to get your mindset right for yourself and for the leaders within your business. Because if your mindset's not right, if you're not open to growth and open to change, then the path forward is going to be incredibly difficult. So I guess we're really finishing today on where you need to start, and that's getting your mindset right. And it's important to know, your mindset is not, fixed is not the right word, it's not set in stone. We can all work on this and continue to work on this. So, really ask yourself a few questions about which mindset are you and what you can do to move towards being in a growth mindset. You look at skills. Do you see skills as something you're born with, something that are fixed? Or do you think they come from hard work and can always improve? When you're faced with challenges, do you see them as something to avoid, something that could reveal a lack of skill or tend to give up easily? Or do you see challenges as something that should be embraced, an opportunity to grow and make you become more persistent? When you're, effort, do you see effort as essential? Do you see it as a path to mastery and the absolute only way to be good at something? Or do you see effort as something to avoid? Do you worry that effort could reveal a lack of skill, and do you tend to give up easily? When you're given feedback, how do you take that? Do you see it as being useful, something to learn from, a way of identifying areas for you to improve? Or do you have a fixed mindset and see it as unnecessary and something you only receive when you're not good enough? And when you're faced with setbacks, do you tend to blame others? Do you tend to get disorganised and go into disarray? Or do you use those setbacks as a wake-up call to work harder next time? So, great to, ask yourself some of those questions and think about what you can do to move towards being in a growth mindset. And the fact that you're all here today listening to this would suggest that you're all there already, which is great. So some final thoughts, and coming back to Ernest Shackleton, the great Antarctic explorer who nearly died on the ice but didn't, through his perseverance and his leadership. I think leaders need to create followers now more than ever. Now is not the time to be a boss. Now is the time to be a leader. You need to get people to follow you. Watch out for the command and controller syndrome. Both in Australia and across the world, we're all watching many examples of leadership and different approaches to it. So watch out for that command and controller syndrome. Inspire rather than direct. Use a carrot rather than a stick. Empower rather than instruct. Don't just care about the results, care about the ideas, the people, and the vision. Be visual within your teams, be active and listen. And master your message. There's so much doom and gloom out there at the moment. It's your role to really sell hope and opportunity and master your message around that to your people as leaders. And it's been a really difficult time for most people. So I really urge you to celebrate the little things. It's those little wins within a business that build momentum and will get you through this stage and get you back into the thrive stage of your business. So that is it for me. Thank you very much for listening. We're just going to finish. Here we go. We've just, as I said, over these thank you for joining us for these 3 webinars. It's hopefully you've learnt some things and found them useful. I've taken you through the survive, adapt, and now thrive stages of business recovery through a crisis. And to recap today, it's really about getting back to strategy. You've had to just get on and get doing things within your business. But now that we've come through, hopefully the worst of it, it's about getting back to strategy and really thinking about that where again and where you're headed. Leading change and leading your people through this time is so important. So be confident to lead change and lead your people and ensure that there's alignment across your business. And then now you'll have some tools and thoughts around what's next for your business. Now, I will be staying, or we'll all be staying online to answer any questions if there are some. Otherwise, I'm just going to roll in. Mike can roll into camera on his chair and just have a little chat to you about Growth Club Central Victoria moving forward.
Thanks, Sarah, and great session today. Really enjoyed that. Some really powerful lessons there around leadership, so I think you really put that across well. This is not the end for Growth Club. In fact, it's just the beginning. Our intent, the three of us, was to give something back to the community at the moment and businesses, especially as you get through this crisis. But we now want to sort of put ourselves in a position where we can help you thrive and really capitalise on what you're doing. So we're going to be coming together in August for our first Growth Club session. So stay tuned and keep on our social media if you want to find out when that is or join us. You can join Growth Club at any time because it's predominantly a coaching program and a development program. We just happen to have events that we bring people together as peer groups, and our first one will be in August. So we've already got some members. We've got some people that have said to us they want to join and will be joining. So we look forward to maybe seeing you in this Growth Club. And our goal for Growth Club as a group is to bring like-minded people together that are trying to reach their full potential in their businesses and help them do that. And we think with the blend of Ewan giving us financial and business sort of planning expertise, Sarah with her marketing genius and brand genius, and then me doing a little bit around sales and customer service, we've got the perfect blend for growth. So we look forward to people coming together with us and working with us. So if you know anyone that needs any help or you think needs help in Central Vic, so that's Geelong, Bendigo and Ballarat, please put them in touch with us and we'll follow them up. So I've got a couple of minutes. We'll just finish off with some questions now. If there's any questions, does we see?
I can see one question on there and I can't work out how to type it in.
Will we be getting
yes,
handouts?
You'll be getting handouts and copies of the models presented today. So that will be in your inbox shortly.
So we posted, all the webinars have been posted in the recording, so you can go back and see them, but you'll also be getting the handouts, which the one that Sarah mentioned, the COVID vision handout with all the questions, I think is a real ripper. That's what I've been using a lot lately. So good session, Sarah, and the sun's bright and shining on Buninyong, so maybe there is some green shoots after all in the depths of winter.
Definitely. Yeah.
So any questions, anyone, before we sort of wrap it up? Of course, you can email Ewan, myself or Sarah on these addresses or contact us directly. That's no problem either. So thanks, Sarah. I think we'll wrap it up there. I hope everyone has a great long weekend and stay safe and healthy, of course. And thanks for joining us for the three. There's a number of people that have gone through all three sessions, which is fantastic. That's what we wanted. So thanks very much for joining us. And back to see us. The next one. Yeah. And we look forward to seeing you in the Growth Club in August as we come back together. Details to follow. Okay. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. No worries. Thanks. Bye.